Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be recording a video showcasing a set of tools that I've been working on for Magicka modding and stuff like that. Okay, let's get started. So first of all, I want to explain all the tools that I have available. The tooling set is composed of 4 programs, which are, one is the compiler and decompiler for XNB assets. It basically implements support for every single type of XNB basic XNA object that Magicka uses, and it's easily extensible, so you can add custom user-defined types in case you want to make custom engine mods for Magicka with personalized data types and custom data files, right? There's a mod manager that I've programmed, which is a program that uses a virtual file system to support installing different profiles with Magicka base installs mods set up in a way that it doesn't require making multiple copies by hand anymore, so it doesn't take up as much disk space, right? And the Blender add-on, which is the map editor that we're going to be using from now on, and finally a graphics user interface program. So we're going to be starting from the highest level, I suppose. So this is, or actually, never mind. Let's just start from the highest level. So this right here is the graphics user interface program. The name is pretty shit. It's Magicka Packer GUI. Obviously, this is a temporary name. Eventually, it will be something better, but I'm terrible at naming stuff. So this program right here, we can go ahead and start searching through the different menus that we have. We have a menu for installs, mods, profiles, and a bunch of menus for compiler, decompiler, and settings. So the way this program works is that it allows us to access all of the command line utilities that I program, and they unify them under a common graphics user interface, so that it's easier for people without technical knowledge to be able to easily organize their projects and use these tools without really having to know how to work from the command line, right? So if we go over to the settings menu, we can see that this is fully customizable. We can change every single path in the application, and we can change them to be relative paths if the user needs them to be. We'll make a more in-depth view of this thing right here in the future. What I care about most showing today is going to be the high-level functionality. So the first thing that most people are going to want to talk about is the compiler support. So if we go over here to compiler, we're going to first of all open up Steam. I'm going to go browse my project location, well, the place where I've got my Magicka install, right? And I'll search through content, and I'm going to be selecting some XNB files, maybe some challenges, and picking these levels, right? Something like that. Let's go ahead and select the arena level, because this is one that many people care about. Whoops, sorry, arena. So there we have it, is the Havendir Arena XNB. So we're gonna be copying this file right here, or, well, as a matter of fact, I was gonna put it in another location, but we could just, whatever. Yeah, let me make a temporary folder here. So we got compiler test. We can put in here this file, for example, and let's search a bunch of other I don't know, XNB files. So let's say, for example, the shrine map, right? Some random file. Let me go ahead and go to compiler test. Okay, so we got these 2 maps here, for example, right? And with the compiler tool, we can either run this from the command line, or we can run this from the GUI. So we're gonna see how it works from the graphics user in the first phase, and then we're gonna be seeing the command line way of doing things. So we can go ahead and select files, right? And with the select files option, it opens up this window right here that lets us select the files that we want to be processing, right? So we're going to go into compiler test, and, well, sorry, decompiler is the thing that we're going to be using first. So let's go into downloads, compiler test. We got these two XNB files. We can pick them together. We open them up, and they are a selected path right here. And what we're gonna do now is select an output directory. So we can put the same directory right here, and this will automatically write the output path in here, which we can customize as well in case that you actually wanted to, write a path by hand without having to go through the directory browser that Windows opens up, right? And once we're in this location, we can just press decompile, right? And this is going to start running processes. And well, now the graphics interface is not too advanced. It shows the state in text form, but in the future, it's going to be showing a progress bar and an actual, let's say more beautiful option where we can say success, for example, with green color, failure with red color. It's pretty easy to implement, but right now it's very primitive, let's say, right? So now that we see this state right here, we know that the two processes have finished processing. They are now in a state success, so that means it finished working, and the result was success. If they failed, it would say a state failure. In the future, it will be more user intuitive. But we can come here, and we can see that we've generated these files right here, which are CH Shrine and Arena, right? And we can try to open this up with what doesn't it? Yeah, there we go. Open up with, we don't have, there we go, VS Code, because these are going to be pretty large JSON files. So as you can see right here, we've got this large JSON file which contains all of the data of the level, right? Decompiled in a format that Magicka pretty much represents almost one-to-one, right? So this is the format, JSON format that my compiler and decompiler uses, and that the Blender level editor tool is going to be able to understand. So with this, we're going to be able to import this thing into Blender, and this is the type of format in which we will be exporting the data, right? So it's also editable from text if you want. I will be adding some options for vertex buffer compression, because right now it's in expanded form, which takes up a lot of space, but it allows the user to edit everything through text. But obviously we have high-level tools for that, so we don't need any of this stuff anymore, right? And we got the same here on the other Shrine file. So basically these are JSON files. And we can do the opposite process. We can actually compile this if you want, right? And we can even change the output directory. So let's go ahead and cut these files in here. And let's say we got a compiler test 1. This is going to be the compiler test. And then I can rename this to compiler test. Okay, so I'm going to paste this. Whoops, sorry. That's right. So we got the decompiler test. So we can go ahead and, well, let's leave it in here. So let's go ahead and go into the compiler window, and imagine we have these maps right here. These are the files that we want to process, right? This would be usually named as .json if you manually were working on these files from Blender, right? But they can be any extension, because Magicka Pub doesn't really care about the extension. It uses it as a way to figure out what type of file it is, but you can tell it what file it really is if you want to use your own naming convention and you don't like writing .json, right? But that's just like one thing to have into account. So if we go into the compiler menu, we can go ahead and say select files, for example, or we can even select an entire directory, and it will iterate every single file and subdirectory within it. But let's go ahead and select files again, because we got only 2 files that we care about, and these are the JSON files we want to compile, right? We're going to select them. We're going to pick the output directory to be the compiler test output directory, right? And we're going to press compile, and this should be running and success. So these XNB files right here are the compile maps, right? And if we go ahead and open them up with the text editor, we can see this right here is the, well, result of compiling these XNB files. Oops, wait, hold on. This is the decompiler, sorry. These are the ones that we've generated. So let's open the Havendir Arena. As you can see, this file is the original one from within Magicka's files, which is compressed with LCX compression. This is the one that we generated. Right now, my tool does not support, well, almost most tools. I think every single tool that works with XNB files for XNA 3.1 or 4.0 doesn't really support recompressing back into LCX, because the LCX format used by Microsoft is actually closed. So we don't really have legal permission to use it unless we wrote our own algorithm like Wimbledon did. And that's kind of a mucky territory, right? But I will in the future work toward actually implementing a automatic compression system, right? But you can see that it writes everything in here. So we got the XMBW header, we got the file sizes, the content readers required in here, and all of the context of the level right here. And we can verify that it's correct because we can see some paths for textures in here, right? All over the place. So pretty much, as you can see, this is the compile format of the map, right? And this is what Magicka would be able to utilize internally when we paste these files into the game file, right? So after we've seen this, the thing we would care about most would be seeing what this whole installs, mods, and profile stuff I'm talking about really is. This is the system that offers a virtual file system utility to install profiles. So the logic here is that install allows you to select base game install. So this is basically where you're going to be putting stuff like vanilla versions of Magicka. So you're going to be putting in here, for example, your path to where you have the Steam common folder. So you can go to Steam, we can right click and manage browse local files, right? The path that you usually want to put is wherever you have your Magicka install in there, right? So for me, for example, I've got multiple versions of Magicka in here. I've got Magicka 1.4, 1.5, 1.10, the one from Steam. And this is another version that I customized with a bunch of mods with, editing the code through the NSPy modification, right? So this path right here is the one that we're going to be configuring our app to use. So if we go over here to the settings, we can see that it says installs, data, installs. By default, it uses relative paths relative to the app. So if you want to see this data for the app, you can just go to the home screen and press this button, and we'll open the directory where the app is located. If you go over here, you can see that all of these paths are relative. So we can go over here and see that they are in data installs. So the app is going to look into data. Stands for mod manager, and installs is the location where we should have our installs for the game, right? So if you want to do it like that, you can paste every single install in here. But if you don't want to use this default folder that the application offers, you can customize it. And as a matter of fact, I always customize this one, right? Like every single path, the one for the tools, I leave by default because the app packs the tools with it. But if you didn't want to use the packed version of the tool and you wanted to offer your own implementation of these programs, you could do so, and you could change these paths right here by hand, right? So what we're going to be doing is changing this path right here, and you can either type out the string by hand by pasting it like this, or you can go ahead and press this button right here, which will navigate through the Explorer, and you can then paste it here and go here, or you can manually go wherever you want to go. So we can, for example, go to the D drive. We know we have the Steam library here because I have it on external drive, and this is the folder where I have my games, right? So we can select this directory here, and it now selects the Steam library, Steam apps common. And if we go to installs, is gonna load up every single install right here. So as you can see, we got Magicka, 1.10 vanilla, 1.4 modern, blah blah blah. So this is literally just displaying the name of the directory that you selected, right? And that's literally all there is to it. You can press these buttons to open the folder where this is located. So if I wanted to see where my 1.5 is located, I can just open it up and edit whatever files I need, right? And I can open the directory right here, which is gonna open the common directory, the one where every single one is located. So basically, installs is the place where you locate a folder with every single install for Magicka that you have, right? The reason why it only shows the Magicka installs is that it checks that the folders within the path that you selected for installs contains an actually valid Magicka install, right? So what that means is that it will iterate through all of them, and it checks, the thing that it checks is for the Magicka executable file. If it's not there, then it doesn't recognize that as a valid Magicka install. And it doesn't check anything else regarding the install, because technically people have made custom executable mods before through code injection, and I didn't want to be restrictive as in checking the CRC to make sure that the install is one of the valid original files from Steam. There's the potential of an engine rewrite in the future for Linux support, so in the end, all I check is that a Magicka executable file exists within the path, and that's it, right? If that file exists, then we are pretty safe to assume that that is going to be a Magicka install that we want to support for this profile system, right? So if we go over to the mods directory, this is pretty much the same. This is just the location where you locate your mods. And I can do the same. I can go ahead and press this directory and this button for searching for directories, and I can look for the one I want, which is on the D drive, and I think it was Magicka mods. There it is. So as you can see, I got a bunch of test mods in here, right? I've got an entity test influence maps that I made to test some properties for geometry. I've got the UMEX mod, a bunch of other mods, right? So I'm gonna select this path, and we can go ahead into the mods view, and you can see that we've got a scrollable view with the list of mods, right? So if this list grows more, we can scroll as much as we want. So as you can see, this becomes scrollable if the space is not enough, right? So I'm gonna make it a little bit larger. The same happens in every single window here. Is just a scrollable view, so it allows you to see every single option, no matter what the size you pick, right? So we can see the mods. It works the same as the installs window, basically, right? And here's where the magic happens. This is the profiles window. Here in profiles, you can create custom installs of Magicka without having to manually copy paste files. So the classic way of installing Magicka mods that people have used up until now has been saying, okay, this is the install code of the game. I'm gonna copy the entire files of the game, which is almost 2 gigabytes, right? And I'm gonna be adding every single mod file that I want to it, and if any mods are incompatible, or I want a version where I don't have mods, or I have a different set of mods, then I copy paste the original files again, and then I add the mods over. And this takes up a lot of space because it takes up a lot of time. So a lot of space because you're going to be copy pasting the same files over and over again. You're going to be copying those same 2 gigabytes from Magicka installs over and over again for every single install you're going to be making. It's error prone, requires a lot of manual user intervention, and it's also very slow because depending on how fast your hard drive's read and write speed is and how fragmented your disk is, you're going to be having a different amount of time, which is going to take up more and more time to be able to copy over the files. So obviously it's not ideal, it's really bad, right? So here what we're doing is something different, right? Here we're using a virtual file system to be able to set up the installs. So what that means for us is that we don't take up any additional space. We literally just tell the operating system where we want to point to every single original file, and we can merge them together. So you can have multiple profiles with custom installs of Magicka. You don't take up any additional space. They take a few seconds to install at most. And if you have multiple profiles that require the same mods, you don't copy paste the same mods over and over again. So it's way better, and it's got overwriting support by default, so you don't have to go fixing files by hand. If there are any mods that overwrite original files or that want to extend the contents of another mod, then now we can do that very easily. So basically we have mod overwriting like we didn't have before, and it can get better. We're not completely on a Skyrim level type of overwriting specific parts of files there. We can overwrite complete files, so we're more close to how Quake Engine does things, right? So that's pretty good, which means that we can go ahead. I'm going to stop talking now. I'm going to start showing how it actually works because I wanted to explain what it does to prove that it's actually good. And now we're going to see how it works, right? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a new profile. And when we have this profile window right here, we can basically create a new install. This is like the profile creation window show for the Minecraft launcher, kind of, not really. It's got a bunch more options. So let's say, imagine I wanted to make a Magicka 1.5 install with, I don't know, let's say the entity test influence version 2 mod, right? So I can say, I can name my profile anything I want. So here I could say literally 1234 profile thing, or any name you want. This is literally just a descriptive string that you can use to know what your install is. So I'm going to be calling it my Magicka test, for example, right? So I can go ahead and apply these changes, right? And we got this entry in here. This is the new entry that we've just created. So we got my Magicka test right in here. So as you can see, we got another profile that I have created before. This one right here is Magicka 1.4 with Umix. So we'll talk about that in a while. First, I want to show you all of these buttons right here. So you can see these options are different things that we can do with the profile. So with the profile, the actions that we have is play, install the profile, edit the settings of the profile, open the directory to the profile, and delete the profile, right? So if we're gonna go in order, the first thing you may notice is that the play button is red in this case, even though this one is green, right? So the reason why this play button is red in here is because the profile is not installed yet. So in the past, I used to automatically install the profile when you created it. But I think that's not the best way to go, because some people may want to have a profile and never update it, even if you automatically change files from your original mods, right? So to ensure that I respect the way users want to set up their system, I thought that it would be better to just let users manually determine when is it that they wanted to install their mods, right? So basically, to be able to play the profile, you have to press the install button first. If we try to press it here, you're going to see that there's an error and Magicka failed to launch, right? So Magicka didn't launch because it's not installed yet. So let's go ahead and open the file. As you can see, we got the profile.json file right here, which we can edit. Which is basically a JSON file that contains the configuration for the profile. This is processed by the command line utility that is the Magicka Mod Manager program that I made, that I mentioned at the start of the video. This program right here is something that you can run from the command line if you don't want to use the graphic user interface. But if you do want to use it, you can just press this button right here and then it installs the profile for you. So let's go ahead and we're gonna install the profile. The install is being prepared. And after it finishes, it either notifies an error or it tells you that it was successful, right? So in this case, it was successful. It says success, profile successfully installed. And now you can see that the button is green because the profile is now installed. So I can just press the button and I would play the game. But before launching the game, I want to showcase a bunch of things. So if we go over to the other profile, this is Magicka 1.4 with Umix, we can go ahead and press the edit button. You can see that we can change the name. There's no incompatibility issues. We don't have to move around any files. The name is literally just a descriptor string within the JSON file. So it's literally really quick. It's like instant to change this data, no problem, right? And I can change the version of Magicka that I have however I want. I'm going to keep the 1.4 version. But as you can see, we've got this list of mods right here with a bunch of numbers and buttons in here. Okay, so this install right here that we have, the one that has Magicka 1.4 with Umix, loads up the Mighty mod. Mighty is the internal name of the directory for Umix, which is a mod made by another person. It's ultra hard moded X for Magicka, right? And the Umix mod contains a bunch of changes for base game files and characters and maps and stuff like that, right? And we can change, if we wanted to make a mod that modified any properties based on Umix files, we would obviously need to load that afterward so that it would be compatible, right? So this is what these options here are for. The user can go ahead and enable different mods. For example, imagine I want to load test mod 1 as well, right? And I could have hundreds of mods in this list if I wanted, right? And the thing that is important here would be I want to be able to determine that Mighty is the mod that has to be loaded first, right? So this mod right here, as you can see, is at the beginning because we configured it to be like that. But let's imagine that test mod 1 needs to be loaded first because it's a dependency of test mod 2, for example, right? We could go ahead and go pressing these buttons right here to be changing the load order, and so we push it up and down in the load order. So this is kind of like a scanning load order. So that way we can determine which of the mods are loaded first when we create our install, right? But imagine we have hundreds of mods. This is gonna take a bunch of time to be able to push it up by pressing this button. It's really, really slow and annoying. So that's what this button right here is. Not only does it display the load order it currently has, but you can select it and you can customize the load order in here. So we can say, I know I want to load this first. I'm going to put it on order 0. Okay. And it's right there. So imagine I need to load test mod 2 right after Mighty. So it would be in position number 2. I can just press test mode 2 and put it in position number 2. And then this mod entity influence was pushed to position number 3 automatically, right? So basically, this is the best interface I could come up with for changing the load order. If you have any better ideas, I'm open to recommendations, obviously, because I want to improve the user experience as much as possible. But basically, by being able to change the load order, we can make mods with dependency on other mods and be able to load them first, right? That way mod overriding can be implemented very easily, and we can apply the changes and we can go ahead, and now the install is still the old one. If we want to apply the changes, we press the button to install again. The install is being prepared. It's taking a while, and now the install has been successfully installed, so we got the profile and we can press the button to play, right? So let's go ahead and play this install that which is modified, for example, or the other one. Both of them are gonna work. So I'm gonna go ahead and, well, before I start, obviously Magicka needs Steam to be open to run. So if I close the Steam right now, it would pop up the message saying that Magicka needs to be running, that Steam needs to be running for Magicka to boot. So, that's basically a Magicka thing. So this program, in case anyone is curious, it doesn't offer a way to magically pirate the game or boot it without the DRM or whatever, right? So it still requires Steam to be running. If you have a copy that is not official, I don't officially support it, but technically it should run as well, okay? That's just in case people are curious. So we can just go ahead and press the button right here. It's taking a while. You can see that Magicka is now running on Steam. And Magicka takes a while to boot, but there we go. OBS is now showing a black screen, and there we go. So Magicka is opening up right now, and here we are, right? There it is. So we got the game running. We can go over to challenges, and that's it. That's literally all there really is to it. We booted up the game through the launcher. It's taken a while to load because Magicka things. We can go ahead and change the level, and this right here is the custom map that I made, the entity test level that I talked about before. So we can go ahead and boot it up, right? And it's gonna take a while loading it, but once it's loaded, we're gonna be inside of the game. And here we are, right? So we got paste, we got our little wizard over here. We can walk all over the map, collide with the walls. This thing right here, don't worry, it's intentional. I was just testing what the sway and entity influence properties do. In case anyone is curious, sway basically is like that effect that Magicka uses to make leaves and grass move with the wind. And if you put a really high value on a local image, it's gonna look really wonky, like this thing right here. And entity influence determines how much the mesh is deformed, the vertices are deformed with an entity walks on top of it. So this looks ugly as fuck, but entity influence is basically what the game uses for grass. So when you walk on top of grass, the grass moves. When you're nearby, that's basically it. Okay, so I know that detail is unrelated to the video, but it's just, an interesting thing that I wanted to showcase in case anyone was curious when watching this map. And there we go. We got this custom map up and running. You can pretty much make any mods that you want, right? Any custom characters, custom whatever. The program for setting up the The profiles is literally just there to facilitate the process of installing files, right? It merges everything into the same location, so it doesn't really disqualify the possibility of making certain types of mod, right? So that's it. So we can quit now, and we are back to the launcher. We can see it right here. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the underlying implementation of this system, right? So if we open up the directory where this profile is located, right? You can see that in the profiles directory, the profiles are named 1 and 2. That's literally only because they are the shortest path names I could come up with. And you know that Windows has a limit by default of 255 characters in the path. So to prevent taking up too much space of the total length of your path, in case you have mods that have super long file names or large subdirectories, you gotta look out for that, right? Unless users disable that in modern Windows versions with the long paths enabled, right? So basically, that's the only reason why they are named with numbers, to make sure that I respect users' length of path without going way too overboard, right? Because if we made it with the actual profile name, which is this one right here, we would have a bunch of issues, as in taking up this entire length of 22 characters would be wasting from the entire path, right? Max length. And also this way we can allow special characters in profile names, so we can edit this and, for example, have something that would be illegal, like slash backslash backslash slash this file, this thing. We can apply those and it works, right? And this is not like it contains characters that are not valid for Windows paths, so that's basically one of the benefits of doing it this way, because it's only the JSON that has been modified, as you can see right here. But anyways, as you can see, the files that we had before was only the profile JSON file. Now we have a manifest file and a game directory, right? So the manifest file right here literally just contains installed with Encount Manager at this date and this time. The manifest is pretty useless. It exists as a historical implementation detail of how the program used to work before. So in the past, it will look up the date of the install at which this file was generated. The contents of the manifest were literally just there for eye candy, to be honest, so that there would not be a random ass missing empty file lying around. But that way we would automatically be able to tell on boot whether the profile was up to date or not, and automatically reinstall it. But as I said before, I think it's better for users to be able to manually install and update their profiles, just in case they make something wrong, they make a mistake. We don't force users to sit there for 5 seconds waiting for the install to finish when they didn't really want to do anything of that, right? So you can ignore the manifest, doesn't really do anything anymore. The game directory is where the magic happens. You can see that we got this bunch of files right here, which are the Magicka game files for version 1.4. This file is wrongly here because I made a test before. One of my mod files actually has this on the root. So it works, but it shouldn't be there. It's not the fault of the program, it's because I packed my mod wrong, but that's okay. And we can go into content, levels, and challenges, and this is where my mod is located. It's on somewhere, there we go, Danny map 0. So you can see this is my map, the one that I just showcased with the entity influence and stuff. These files are right there. This is the original map file JSON. You don't have to pack this with your mods. I just put it in there to test if it would work and stuff. So it does. Anyway, so as you can see, these files right here, I promised before that it doesn't take up extra disk space, unlike manually setting up installs. And you've seen it yourself. The process takes a few seconds, but this disk right here, the D drive, is a partition of my C drive, which is an HDD, right? Or maybe D drive, no, sorry. Yeah, this is a partition of my HDD drive, so this is gonna be pretty slow actually, right? Or no, wait. I think my C drive on this machine is actually an SSD. I don't remember. because I have like two computers. But anyway, the point is that this should be slow to set up, right? This one I know it's actually HDD, so we can test it later on. But the point is that copying over those 2 gigabytes on my D drive usually takes like 5 minutes, right? But it happened in a few seconds. But you can see that the files are right there. You know, like if we look at them, it says this takes up this much space. Well, yeah, but not really. The files in here are pointers to the real files. These are known as hard links. Hard links are basically whenever you create a regular file, the thing that you see on the file explorer is a hard link. You don't see the actual data within the file. A hard link is an operating system's, or rather a file system's way of pointing to a block of data where the actual contents of a real file is, right? And you can have multiple hard links pointing to the same block of data. So this amount of space right here only exists once within my hard drive, which is on the file on this path right here, on this directory, right? Like this is where it actually exists. This right here is only a hard link which points to that thing right there. But the original file that we saw is also a hard link. So a way that we can test and prove that this is true is with fsutil in Windows, right? We can go fsutil hard link magicka.exe. As you can see, hard link list. There we go. We got right there the 2 hard links listed. We got the one that is on Magicka path GUI releases data, blah blah blah, and the one on the Steam library path. Right. So this is the one that we originally had. But both of these are hard links that point to the real block of data within your hard drive. Okay. What that means is that this right here was really quick to set up. We literally just recursively created directories and hard links. This is what I mean by simulated virtual file system, right? It's an on-disk virtual file system, not an on-memory virtual file system, because for an on-memory virtual file system, we would need to hook up calls to create file and read file for Magicka, and I don't think that's gonna play too nicely because it's programmed with .NET framework, and I don't want to break anything. I don't want anything to accidentally, fuck up their machine. So I think this is the safest way to work for now until I figure out a cleaner way to implement it, right? And if you are working with different hard drives, like for example your profiles hard drive, everything is on the D drive right now. If I wanted to have my final installs, for example, on the F drive or something like that, we cannot use hard links, because hard links can only exist within blocks of data that are inside of the same volume. It's not necessarily the same hard drive. What I mean by the same volume is the same mount point. So for example, I could have a RAID where I connect like 3 physical hard drives into a single mount point, put it into my machine, and it would appear as the H drive, for example, right? Then I would have H drive, actually physically multiple hard drives, but only one single mount point from the point of view of the operating system's file system. And right there, I could use hard links for this linking process, right? But if we are between different mount points, so I could say my profiles go on the F drive, I would need to use links, symbolic links, because that's the only way to link stuff up between different volumes on the file system of the operating system. And the thing about symlinks is that on every single operating system except Windows, you can do them just fine. On Windows, you need admin privileges. So if you change any of these directories to not be on the same hard drive, it's going to, every single time you go ahead and install the profile, it's going to prompt you with a UAC, and it's going to ask you, do you want to execute this as administrator? And you're going to have to give it permissions, right? Otherwise, it will not be able to work. But that's just an implementation detail, right? So this right here is the way that the mod management system works. And now we're gonna go ahead and talk about the next part. It's probably gonna be a different video, which is where I'm gonna be talking about the level editor made in Blender, which is what most people are actually gonna care about and wanna look at. Okay, so I'll be right back.